I said check this thing. Can you confirm?
I'm checking Facebook now.
Okay.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, good, thank you. So good evening, everyone. This is the Untitled Chair of the Joshua Johnson Council. It's an African-American Friends group at the Baltimore Museum of Art. It's one of the oldest African-American Friends groups in the nation. So we welcome you this evening as we often like to connect with local artists in the community so we can get insight into their practice and have that relationship established between the artists and the members of the Joshua Johnson Council and now we the wider public. So this evening, we have with us one Tommy Mitchell, who is a wonderful artist that our Dave is going to further introduce. Dave.
Good evening, folks. We are happy to have Tommy Mitchell here with us. Good friend of mine, incredible artist. I'm going to read from a little rap sheet, but we will hear much more about him because what he does can't be encapsulated into a paragraph. Tommy was born in 1983 in Biloxi. I think I still said that wrong, Mississippi. He relocated to Virginia in the 80s and was always drawing, working from things like magazine covers to basketball cards. He worked a lot of retail jobs before coming back and realizing his calling was in the arts. His medium of choice is ballpoint pen, and it comes from a friendly competition with a classmate. The classmate had mentioned that her grandmother used ballpoint pen to minimize her mistakes, and Tommy followed suit. Self-taught, Tommy has studied tattoo artists for their attention to detail and execution with ink. And we are really lucky and privileged to say that Tommy now lives and works in Baltimore. So we're super excited as part of our fall speaker series, JJC Talks, to have Tommy with us this evening. I'm going to pass it over to Tommy.
How's everyone doing? Hopefully everyone's well, good spirits with everything going on. I'm going to start my artist talk off with something I wrote. I tried to put all my notes together and just give it the best way I could for you. That way you can understand the experience I've gone through as an artist. And then afterwards, I'm going to show some slides and go over pretty much the trajectory of my work over the past pretty much my lifetime, but I'll say probably about past 15 years. So I'm Francis Thomas Mitchell, son of Broya Hudson and Francis Mitchell, brother to James Fred and Kenya Hudson. So to me, this journey is all about pivotal points that led me to be here with you today. I was born at 4/18 on December 5th, 1983 in Biloxi, Mississippi, and moved to Hampton, Virginia in 1988, where I spent the majority of my life. The earliest memory I have as a child was drawing around probably 88, 89, somewhere around there. And I remember it was my dad on the couch and I'm on the floor drawing something from reference, story of my life now. And he says, "Tom, draw what you see." And at that time, I didn't know the impact it would have on my career, but I also realized it wouldn't be that of an abstract painter now either. But those words help mold and sharpen my eye for detail in the empathy of this journey. In school, I wasn't bad. I just did my own thing. I would always draw in class and get in trouble for it, and my grades suffered because of it. I wasn't really interested in school as I was more interested with seeing my friends and hanging out. My mom, a retired educator herself, left me with a gem that I wish more educators would subscribe to. Instead of kicking that child out of class or disciplining them for dancing or acting out, she said, "Get them with the dance team. or the band or theater and nurture their actions and talents instead of dismissing them. So throughout elementary and middle school, I always gravitated towards the kid that drew, direct competition. I would see that, and I would see what they created and what style they used, and take a little bit of that for a bit of understanding for myself, understanding why they implemented a certain color, symmetry, verbiage, or why something didn't have ears or whatever the case may be. It was me putting myself through art school before knowing that was a thing and spending my formative years doing so. So we'll fast forward to high school in 2000. I remember stumbling on a tattoo artist named Mr. Cartoon. His work attracted me from the sense of imagination and taking street and gang culture and the chaos of it all and making it beautiful with ink. That led me down the rabbit hole of tattooing and apprenticeship and how that works and just the day-to-day of being tattooers and the tradition that it carries. Fast forward a couple years later, where I'm a senior in high school who thinks art class is beneath them, I don't need to be here, and really just taking the course for the credits to graduate. I ended up befriending this freshman who was really good at portraits, direct competition. I remember one day we were doing figure drawing, and the freshman and I are talking about perfection and mistakes, and I'll never forget the comment that froze me that day. In reference to mistakes, she said, "My grandmother uses ballpoint pen to minimize her mistakes." Light bulb, right? That was the turning point. From that day moving forward, I used ballpoint pen or ink to chase perfection. Early on, there was no real tutorial or lessons or anything on how to draw with a pen. I would Google everything imaginable to try to find information on how to become better, but the only information I could find was from tattoo artists. I studied Juan Francisco Casas, James Milne, other ballpoint pen artists who at the time were pretty much the most notable ink artists at, I want to say, the early 2000s, late 90s. And I studied their practices to make them my own. Because to me, in my mind, I thought imitation leads to emulation, which is followed by innovation, right? So I also took the same practices and principles and techniques as well, one would use for a charcoal or pencil, to working with ballpoint pen. After a while, I had so much data on pencil and graphite that I can transition smoothly to working with pen comfortably. I felt at a mastery level with working with ink over the years, and with hours and practice and time, you could just see my work elevating to a whole nother level. I can't remember if it was Miles Davis or Thelonious Monk, but I remember one of the quotes they said was, "Master your craft and then forget it." I looked at that as comfort, confidence, and the ability to adapt to all things that not only helped me as an artist, but it just helped me in life. I transitioned from school to retail, and I wasn't drawing as much, but out of high school, I waited tables and worked at the who's who of retailers, from Finish Line to Foot Locker, H&M to Apple. And I looked at that as saving myself from debt and student loans. I treated it as a way to get hands-on experience with how to run and operate a business, learning the financial side of things as well as marketing and strategy. It taught me valuable lessons on how to deal with customers, time management, trends, managing expectations, overcoming obstacles, and dealing with rejection, but having the discipline to remain focused on the bigger picture through it all. So you've heard me mention competition a lot, and for me, everything derives from sport. Some of you may follow me on Instagram and know I'm a huge fan of basketball. For me, participating in sports taught me valuable lessons that I've learned and shared to this day. Teamwork, work ethic, determination, discipline, confidence, and passion. I found value in these because no matter what field you choose, these values or lessons can be applied to prepare you for success or help you reach the goals you're trying to obtain. So when I decided to embark on this path as an artist, I took those same principles and lessons that I learned from sport with me to the art world. Sport also gave me the gift of competition. I'm super, uber, hyper competitive, right? One of my favorite quotes is, the better your opponent is, the better you become. So in art or creating, you would think that there's no real room for competition because you aren't competing against another, you're competing with yourself and trying to get better. Well, yes and no. So my first several showings as an artist were in Virginia, but the artists whom I admired and idolized were doing big shows in New York and LA and Paris and so on and so forth. So in my mind, that taught me about markets. I needed to showcase my work in a larger market, not only to be seen on a broader scale or to maybe garner a higher price, but it was just another point of competition, essentially. Not competing directly with other artists, but putting and forcing myself, as well as my work, in the position to measure up with the works in those markets and esteemed institutions or spaces that hold weight to me. Don't get me wrong, you can be amazing in Des Moines, Iowa, or anywhere for that matter with the power of social media these days, but I was just using it as competition as a way of accelerating my learning and gathering information and letting that lead me to all the possibilities imaginable and unimaginable. When I first started doing shows, I did every show I could think of, just so everyone can see how good the work is. Like I felt confident in what I was presenting, that it needed to be seen, but it needed to be seen on a grander scale. So I used the same idea that I have with retail as far as extracting what I could from my experiences to navigating the art world. In doing so, in doing shows, I would see how other artists handle themselves and their work, how work is presented or displayed, how to create for the space involved, the relationship between artist and curator, among other things. I'm all about the hands-on experience. So I would be in New York City doing like 3 shows a week in different venues, lugging the art around from venue to venue, just to understand and learn from each experience, but also networking with other artists, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work, what galleries represented them, what fairs to apply to, so on and so forth. This was me searching for ways to advance with the absence of schooling. I didn't have a traditional artist journey where one may go to school and graduate and have galleries or institutions ready to offer representation or grants or whatever have you. I often wish I did some days, but I love the path that I chose. Every journey is different, and I enjoy all the information I soaked up and continue to soak up to this day. My work now and then has been about chasing perfection in the execution of ballpoint pen, with the subjects being the icons that are Black women. I've always wanted to shake up what ideal beauty is to those that frequent the galleries, spaces, and institutions that I've been inspired by. I always think of the story when I was a kid, to kind of bring it full circle to when I first started. This journey started with just me being observant. I remember going to Busch Gardens, and my mother had a portrait of her and I drawn. And I remember looking at the portrait and I'm like, man, like, this doesn't look like me, this doesn't look like her. And it wasn't like a character, it was like a guy trying really hard to make sure that, my mother and I looked just how we were sitting there. And like I mentioned earlier, everything's a pivotal point for me. And that was the point where it's like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make sure that whatever I draw or create, or whatever subject that I have, it's going to look like that person to a T. It's going to have the truth in their eyes. It's going to have the freckles on their nose. You know, every hair strain is going to be visible and evident. So I'll end with the points of learning. Life to me is constantly about evolving. Change is inevitable. With that being said, there's always something new I can learn or implement in my work or practice to chase what I'm trying to execute, as well as what may inspire another. I'm very obsessive. Once I'm immersed in something new or that it has my attention, I'm all in, and I have to know everything. With art, it's a bit different, and it's not. I want to learn the basic skills to execute my vision, my story, or my voice, but I also like to do my own thing. In being self-taught, I recall another moment with my father where I remember him saying, "Tom, you should go to art school. Learn from people who have done it. Follow that path." And in my naive, youthful mind, I was like, "Why would I go to school to learn how someone else creates?" But I would always find a way to change the topic when that question reared its ugly head to me. But I always wanted to stay my own path, tell my own story, do what other artists did for me as far as inspire them on this journey, because I feel like hopefully someone listening or someone who's going to hear my journey, it helps them extend their journey. They learn something, how I learned from, whether it be sport or tattoo artists or whomever, to further my path and get to this point where I'm speaking with you guys today. So that's everything I have. I tried to make it concise and to a degree where it's not too long-winded, but that's all I got. I want to get to a point now where I share with you guys some photos of the work. And give me 1 second. I'm gonna share my screen so you can see the trajectory over the years of where my art has come from. Okay.
Sure.
1 second. All right. Do this. All right. Let's see what we got for you. All right. Can you see it?
Yep. We can see
Perfect.
it.
Perfect. All right. Let's see. We're gonna play on this Mac. All right. So this was a comic I did. Gosh, this is 91, 92 maybe. It's obviously called The Adventures of Art Man and Marker. And it's in front of me now in my studio now, and I look at it and I always think, I'm like, man, I still have that same feeling creating that I do creating all the work that's around me today. And I know if I still have that, I'll go far. Once I lose that, then I might as well just stop doing what I'm doing. But The Adventures of Art Man and Marker, it's about two superheroes, and they go around saving the world from bad art. Dave mentioned it earlier, where I was always drawing like sports cards, comics, etc. And I always thought, okay, if I do this, I want to have a vast knowledge of just imagery and everything that I can draw and possibly create, because I feel like in the future I may need that those skills to put into my work. So we'll go to the next picture here. this was this is maybe a couple years out of high school, and I was studying sculpture, and I'm still doing searching for tattoo artists to follow just because of their eye to detail, and there's a lot of Greek sculptures and just Roman sculptures that I was drawing, and this one was one where I just made a collage of work, and there was a woman I was pursuing at the time, and it wasn't going as planned, and it was kind of an ode to her, but it kind of wasn't. And I finished this on September 6th. I want to say that's 2011. And I want to say that was the day I told myself that I'm going to pursue being an artist, not only full time, but make it a career, and make this something that hopefully over time I'll let grow and nurture. This work, I might have been dating the same woman at the time, but we were going through some things, and it was some conversations that were important, but really shook up my life that inspired this work. And it put me not necessarily in a dark place, but it was just one of those things where it was kind of another pivotal moment where it's like, okay, am I going to stay this course? Am I going to stay with this woman? Like, what's going to go on with my life? What's going to go on with our life, with our family's life if we start one? And this is probably still to this day one of my favorites. A professor at VCU has this piece, and she's always reaches out. She thanks me for letting me share that with her, as well as the experience, because it was a pretty traumatic experience at the time for me. But this is I'm from the South, born in Mississippi. Obviously, I said I've transitioned to Virginia, but being so close and going back and forth from Mississippi to Virginia, Virginia to Mississippi, being close to New Orleans, when Katrina hit, this was something that I did in response to that. I wasn't really using a lot of color. The last picture that I showed, that was kind of me listening to people, and them saying, "Oh, you draw really well, but I wish you would use color." And I always listen to feedback, because I want to create my own work, but I'm not in the business of hoarding it either. I want to share it with people. One of my favorite Picasso quotes is, "I spent the beginning of my life finding my gift. Now I'm going to spend the rest of my life sharing that gift." So I always think, listening to people and kind of understanding what they are looking for their home, or color patterns, so on and so forth, I try to implement in my work, but still make my own. But back to this piece. This was October 2013, and funny story about putting the date on there. I used to put the date on everything because I wanted people to see how fast I worked, which gift and the curse in a sense, where sure, I might have something on 10/19, I might have something new on 10/22, something else on November 1st, just to show like I'm really focused and hungry to want to create and learn and grow and just see where this path takes me. This was something I did for a birthday gift, and it was me finding the range of what I could do, where my imagination could take me. It's a little Hello Kitty collage that I did for an ex-girlfriend's daughter at the time. Let's see here. This one, I want to say there's a date on there, but it's so small I can't see it. But I've always done political works in a sense where I don't want to make it, I don't know, it's weird, right? Like people ask me, hey, do you make Black art? And it's not a weird question to ask, but I always reply, I don't make Black art, I make my art. What someone defines it as is on them. I just do my work, and you know, there just happens to be Black subject matter, but I don't really consider it Black art. But this was one of those works where I was in a place where I'm learning about my culture, I'm learning about my people, I'm learning about, you know, the country I live in, and the political climate that I was in 10 years ago, et cetera. And just, you know, listening to my gut, my heart, and, you know, executing what I visualized in my mind. And this work came about. And following suit not too far after was this work, where I just felt like children they don't have a voice. You know, they're trying to figure out their voice. They're acting now. They're looking for attention. But like I mentioned earlier, like we need to nurture that. We need to figure out, you know, why, the why behind it. How can we, you know, help them for tomorrow? That way they can do the same for that next generation. And I just feel like the youth isn't getting a fair shot or a fair shake at this life thing. So this one, I really like this one. This one's in my mom's house in Mississippi now. I almost forgot about it until I went down there last year, and it's me. My thought process is essentially like collage work. I'm like extracting ideas and just putting it together and seeing what comes about. And this, I took a bunch of Negro ads, slave wanted posters, so on and so forth, and just collaged it together. And you have this old man, weathered face, and just through all of that, just still with a smirk and a smile on his face, like I've survived that. Like that's all you got. Like I survived that. I'm still here. I'm still present. I'm still active. I'm still, you know, able to inspire that next person who could move this thing forward. Let's see what I got here. I want to say this. I did this work right around the time of Freddie Gray's passing and the Baltimore riots. Like it goes back to the point of like the youth not being able to get a fair shot to try this life thing out and to see what it has to offer, and where their hearts and their minds and their imagination can take them if they just had a chance. So this was me experimenting with more collage work and just trying to get better as an artist and doing larger works. And this was me actually starting to try to find a transition out of using frames. My later work, or my newer work now, is mounted on panel, because I felt at the time with frames, there's a barrier there with the glass or the plastic or whatever have you. And in working with pen, some people would think, oh, this is graphite, this is pencil, this is whatever. And I didn't want that barrier to be there. So this is one of several works that I did before I transitioned out of framing my works and moving into mounting them with panel. As you can see from the last work in this one, this was me trying to figure out how to navigate using a subject and using abstract details or patterns or just different elements to heighten or put to the forefront the the subject and just the detail of the drawing. Like I would just find all these different avenues to do so. And this next work does the same, where I'm just exploring what's next. What can I do? I remember a conversation with a friend of mine when I first started this, and I asked, what can I do as a ballpoint pen artist? And he was like, well, that's on you to define. That's on you to figure out where this thing can go. And to this day, I think about that all the time, and I try to, push what ballpoint pen art is forward and show that it can be considered real art. This was just something I did. I just had an idea in mind. I think I came up with the title before I even did the work, called In the News, where instead of news being N-E-W-S, it'd be N-O-O-S-E. I used my brother, mother, and my sister's alma mater of Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi, for a diploma, but it's just another kind of politicized work that I had done however many years ago. I love jazz, huge fan of jazz, how it makes me feel, the emotion that it garners, and huge fan of Miles Davis. And I just want to do something different with a pop of color and just explore how the interaction of my ballpoint pen work as well as mixed media would look, and this piece came about. This is one of the first works I did with mounting paper on panel. It was hell trying to navigate that journey because I didn't know what I was doing, but my mindset is I'll figure it out. There was a lot of trial and error, and I got to a point where I felt comfortable with this one, and I just took a African mask, kind of a sunset element to a degree, but if you're religious, it could be used as a halo as well, and just adding some tribal marks as well on this piece. In keeping up with the tribal elements, I remember the flack that I received for these few works because people would think, oh, you draw so well, the portraits are amazing. Why would you vandalize it or put graffiti on it? And I would just laugh. I'm like, I can draw portraits until the cows come home. Like, what else is out there? What else can I do? And this is me searching for that, what else I can do. This was a work that I did, I want to say 2018. This is part of the process and me sketching out some Roman numerals, but you can see the colors that I chose and just figuring out how each color complements each other and how my work is taking on a new narrative where the portraits, they're not only standalone portraits, but it's very minimal. It's straight to the point. It's back to the narrative I have where I'm trying to, put these icons or these goddesses or these deities, as I call them, of Black women at the forefront, and just trying my best to make sure that what I have in my mind is executed. Speaking of the devil, as far as deity, this is another work where I'm a huge fan of religious imagery and taking those elements as well as like fashion photography, portraiture, just magazine covers, and just opposing that with any and everything I could to complement the drawing is how I achieved some of these later works. I recall back, I want to say early 2005, I would go to Barnes & Noble every morning and I would grab like 4 or 5 magazines and I would just pick from each magazine just a picture and I would draw that picture all on one piece of paper and just have this collage of images, because I looked at that as practice, how I can get better, how I can execute many things, but be able to use that later on in the future, because I always felt like this is where I'd go with my work, where I'm implementing different things to enhance the subject matter or enhance the drawing that I'm creating. This is a work, I want to say this was the first work from quarantine or lockdown that I did. And I had the idea in mind. I just didn't know how I wanted to execute it. But I know that I wanted the elements of graffiti. I wanted a himba child with himba garb. I wanted floral elements. And at the time, I was using barcodes in my work just because I liked the way it looked. I liked what it stand for. You know, things are for sale, but it really isn't for sale. It's a weird dynamic, and I wanted the viewer to kind of make those own judgments themselves when seeing that barcode or the graffiti elements, and kind of taking something that, as far as the graffiti is concerned, taking something that's deemed ugly and making it acceptable, or making it comfortable, or making what's the word I'm looking for? Just making it look clean with what is contemporary art. This is another work where I took a himba woman, where I was exploring gradients and how the effects would look with ballpoint pen if I just drew over the paint. And it was a fun little process. It was a nice little small work that I did. And going back to earlier where I was mentioning that I work fast, the gallery owner or the curator that represents me out of LA, he's like, no, don't mention how fast you work. But to me, I like to mention it because I want people to understand that I don't work fast just to work fast. I work fast because I work efficient. I don't sacrifice quality. I'm very focused on what I'm doing, and it just happens that it's faster than the norm, or more efficient or quicker than another. This was a commission I did for a friend, hometown hero, Newport News' finest, Allen Iverson. I don't really do a lot of like celebrity art or fan art or whatever have you, because I mean, it's a niche thing. It can be done. I don't want to say anyone can do it, but it's just something that's overdone. But this was fun because the friend of mine, he was like, dude, just have at it. And I found a portrait that I enjoy of Iverson, and I wanted to take what I felt comfortable with and just making those elements and bringing my motif to the portrait and giving him a halo, and making sure that his tattoos are vibrant and seen, and just a collage of work that I know I'd be proud of, but just making sure that the 7 cities back home, is proud of as well. Because when you come from Virginia, you come from, Newport News, Hampton, Virginia Beach, Suffolk, Norfolk, Chesapeake, it's kind of a crab in a barrel mentality, but you always root for that person who makes it out and who succeeds, and you always try to share the wealth with those back home to uplift that next person and bring them up and giving them a hand up. This is another work I did. This one was fun because I moved recently, and I moved to be closer to my studio, and I live 4 minutes from here in my studio, and the walk that I take from my apartment to the studio, I see a lot of floral arrangements and a lot of graffiti. So it was only right that I put those elements and juxtapose them together in the work. And this is one of, I want to say, 4 or 5 works that I did that I explored graffiti and floral arrangements, but also um, the attempt of trying to become a better painter as well. This goes back to one of the first works I did in quarantine, but I did this beforehand, and I've always had an appreciation for skulls, and I always feel like every skull has a story to tell. And I tried to implement, or I did implement, exotic beetles and insects with the skulls to try to achieve a more traditional mask look or representation. And obviously, I continued with the barcode and the graffiti because I felt like this is a cool look. Like it just makes sense. It all flows together. Like I come from a background of drawing magazine covers and cards, etc. So you're going to see those elements. You're going to see me comfortable creating those things when it's time to in my work. This work, I was blessed to be one of the artists to work with a friend of mine, Greg Cummings. We did some stamps with Black artists, and we put Black work, whether it be Black subject matter, etc., on stamps. And I want to say, I always ruin it, but the name of the show was None of my heroes appear on no damn stamps. In an ode to Black heroes and Black artists and those Blacks who were on stamps from years past. So obviously I have a subject matter here. You'll always see 11 somewhere in my work or in my name just because of numerology. But I kept the graffiti motif and kind of blended that with the barcode. So where the barcode would be, I put graffiti instead, and then you see the magic to represent Black girl magic. This was another work where I reached out to Koshin Finley, amazing artist, portrait artist himself, and asked him like, hey, can I draw you? I'm getting a lot of flack for not drawing males, and he was comfortable with it. He gave me the green light, and this was something I did where I kind of wanted to still use the floral elements, but also use graffiti as well to kind of make a clean piece of work. Now I'm going to show you some things I'm working on now for an upcoming show I have probably less than a month in November with the gallery that represents me, Band Devices. This is kind of part of the process where I'll draw the subject, get them all drawn out, and then I'll think about what colors complement the idea I have in my head, or the pattern, or just getting all that out and navigating, trying to make a cohesive body of work. This was another work that I'm doing for the show. The largest work that I've ever done. I want to say it's 48 by 60, and this is another work that'll be in the show, and I look forward to showing the final soon in November. But it was a fun little experience working on something larger because I can't really manhandle it and move it around and orient it how I want. With smaller pieces that take me, just that amount of time to create. Like I had to take my time and think about, okay, how am I going to position the piece and make sure that I'm still achieving the same details I would for smaller work. This is another work that I'm working on for the show. This one's, I believe, 40 by 40. And just going, as you can see, for me, like I mentioned earlier, like I learned from pencil and graphite and charcoal techniques. but I kind of created my own ballpoint pen techniques along the way. Most people are familiar with cross-hatching, and if you ask me, I think it's a waste of time, but that's me. I like to look at what I do, and I call it sloping in my head, where I'm going in one direction, but I'm just adding multiple layers to create the depth and the detail that I achieve throughout my works. And for this last video, I'm going to show you pretty much the process of how I draw.
You almost want to have some theme music, right?
All right, and that's all I got for you. Um,
Thank you so
that's
much.
my journey in a nutshell. No, of course. No, I thank you guys for having me.
No, it's a wonderful way to get to know you. And
Thank you.
I see your practice. I'm one of those website stalkers. So I've been on your website.
I hope so.
Check
hope
it
so.
out and see. And you answered some of the questions I had. I'm not sure if others had questions, but the level of detail that you put in is tremendous. And
Thank
I
you.
was also questioning, your layers. And when you put the layers into the work, there was something that drove the choice of layers and the choice of materials. So I should check with Dave too to see if there were any questions on Facebook before I monopolize question time. So
I have some questions from the Facebook.
Okay.
So someone asked why the ballpoint pen? I think you talked about that a little bit about it, but what about the ballpoint?
Yeah, I can.
Is there a certain brand of ballpoint pen that is like your pen, or do you use a lot of pens?
I'll start with the why. The why, like we mentioned earlier, is to uh, minimize mistakes. And um, there's certain things with a pencil I can't really achieve, but with ink, I can get the blacks that I'm looking for, or the dark depth that I'm looking for um, with pen. And plus, it's uh, I guess full circle. Like I've always done my own thing, and I always marched to the beat of my own drum. But I just felt comfortable with things that are complex in a sense, where people aren't gravitating towards a pen to draw with things. It's like, what if you make a mistake? Then what? Now you got to start over. I looked at it like, oh, that's a challenge. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm all about competition, and to me, that's what drove me to this point is being hungry and as well as humble enough to try to get better and figure out how I can take this instrument that is people used to sign checks without checks on a thing anymore, but just people that used to sign checks with and make it something that I can use for art. And as far as pens that I used to use a big crystal pen. Um, Early on, I used whatever I could find, and then I transitioned to big crystal pens. And now I just used whatever because Big still has yet to cut the check, but it is what it is at this point. So
I
I'll
was
use
just gonna,
whatever can get the job done.
I was gonna say, if he names a name, anybody representing big.
Yeah, I mean, you get to a point. It's like, hey, I'm out here creating amazing
Amazing
with
work
your
with the
pins, and it's
instrument.
like, hey, you might wanna talk to me, but it is what it is. I've reached out to them. We'll see where that goes. So
But the detail is extraordinary. It's really,
thank
really
you,
beautiful.
thank
So
Yeah.
one of the other questions from the Facebook is, when someone is committed, the commitment that you have to working this way, what is the impact on your work of the uncertainties that we encounter on a daily basis? What is this time, and how does that impact your practice and your thought?
you. I I have a very stoic answer to that, where I just stay the course. I'm focused on the task at hand, etc. But I'm not numb to what's going on either. You know, Obviously early on I showed that in my work. Things affect me, and I put that in the work. But I also want people to see the other side, where Black women or Black subjects can um, be honored, be um, just promoted and highlighted, and just be seen as the opulent uh, people that they are. Like it's one thing. Uh, it's one thing to make the work and just to do it, but it's another thing to understand the why. And I've always felt like my why is, like I said, putting Black women and women of color in this high regard, because to me they're undervalued, they're underappreciated. And it's like, well, no, I have a voice, and I create to this magnitude. I'm going to use my voice and what I create to achieve, these works. So there is uncertainty, but I didn't get here by giving up, or by uh, looking at failure as a thing. What is failure? It's a word. That, to me, that's how I look at it. Like, okay, I made a mistake, or uh, something like that happened, but what, am I just going to sit there, or am I going to move forward? And I always think about progression, and like I mentioned earlier, with change, it's life is all about evolution, and constantly evolving. So how can I stay the course to be an inspiration for someone who thinks they failed, and just thinking that failure really doesn't exist. It's just a moment. Moments come and go. It's just uh, something that I look at as, okay, it happened. now let's move forward. Let's learn from it. Let's take a moment to learn from it. That way, it doesn't happen again. And I also like the quote that I can't remember who said it, but everything that's happened has happened before. So there's that. So.
Can we take a question from the Zoom participants? So one sister, do your drawings have a filter or some type of gloss over your drawings? And they think your work is incredible.
Thank you. No, they don't. I don't really use, I don't use a varnish per se, but I do use a final fixative. That way, over time, the ink stays how it is, and it doesn't fade over time. But no, nothing crazy. No gloss or anything to enhance it, because like I said, I want people to see the detail and and feel the emotions that these works offer. So no enhancements.
Any other Facebook questions, Jean, you want to ask or that are out there?
We have a question that says, do you have a routine before you start a piece of work?
Do I have a routine? Yes and no. I know in my mind, I just want to get as mentally sharp as I can for the work. I don't read art books like how to become a better artist, etc. I read more books on how to stay mentally sharp, how I can train my mind to withstand certain things, stuff like that, because I'm in my mind 9 times out of 10 while I'm creating. Like, it's just really me visualizing what I have up here and executing it on the paper. And I try to make sure that that's clear and it's void of clutter, because if it is, then I can't really stay focused on task, or I can't achieve what I'm trying to do. But as far as a routine, I'll sum it up like this. I remember I used to look far and wide for inspiration, right? Where I'm just like, okay, ooh, that inspired me. I wanna do something with that. Now I'm comfortable, I'm seasoned, I'm groomed. I just feel like I need to just come in here and make the work. Whatever happens, happens. If it gets created, it gets created. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Who cares? I just need to come here, lock in, and make the work. So that's my routine. Just make the work. Whatever happens, happens.
Any other questions from Facebook? I do want to ask this question about layering and where you place. Is it strategic where you place certain layers over specifically your female subjects?
The layers as far as like the abstract
imagery.
elements,
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, some of your imagery, like you may use words or you have stars, you have lots of different things, even where you place the word deity.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I want to say I spoke with a friend about this recently, but my sister early on, I remember everything. I remember every conversation. I remember everyone who showed up to my first art show. I remember everything. So I remember this conversation, and we were talking about art, and she always said, with art, it's a thing where when you put words or subjects or just lettering, numbers, etc., people are going to want to gravitate towards, like, why did you use Roman numeral? Why did you use graffiti? Why is this half seen? Why is this cut off? People are going to want to gravitate towards that. And when I do it for my work, I'm looking at my work now. When I do it for the work, it's the thing where I want those elements to complement each other. I want the subject to complement the words. I want to give you that background of fashion photography or magazine covers that I have, but I want the viewer to stay engaged with the work. I want them to understand why this is here, why I use deity, why I put the barcode there, why I have the banner on some, why I have the halo on some. Like, I want you to understand the why, but I also want you to feel like, okay, I see he's exploring with religious elements, or like I mentioned earlier, fashion photography elements. But it's just a thing of obviously I want the work to be seen. Obviously, art is kind of an acceptance slash validating field where you kind of want to hear what your peers have to say. You want to hear what the critics have to say. You want to know that you're doing something right, even though you don't care about any of that stuff. You still want to hear it. You want to feel good in a sense. But I love the interaction between the verbiage or the words or the Roman numerals and the subject, and how it enhances the work as a whole.
Thank you for that. Sometimes I like to look at people's work and put myself in it and try to think about how do I receive that? And so when I look at something that all of it's beautiful for the whole concept, but to think about how specifically detailed you draw. And then when you place a layer of markings or some other elements of color, I think, was it the spiritual side of you or something subconsciously that said, put it here versus there? Like, it's obviously going to be a red band around the neck. And you might just draw the stripe in a tribal sense down the middle, and where it lands and how the brush stroke falls can say something. And so I don't know if you do that as a conscious movement or if it's more like, I did it and I'm gonna leave it there because I don't want to take it back. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's
I know we're so at time, but these are the questions that I like to just kind of understand.
My father and my sister are photographers, and I feel like I've always had an eye for symmetry. I just feel like, okay, things need to all be symmetrical. It all has to fall in line. I always think, even before I sketch something out, I'm saying, hey, how's it going to look? Where's everything going to be placed, etc. So to me, I'm all about symmetry, and that's essentially how things are positioned, how they are. I just think of the symmetrical value that it could bring to a work or to a piece.
Thank you for that. I know it's that time, and people probably, we've kept you a while, but I so appreciate you taking the time to bring us through your career and sharing. So now I have a little more understanding of what you were thinking or doing as I trolled your website for images. And this is your website at Tommy Mitchell. The L's are two number ones, is where we can reach you. And for sale, your art is that yes, art is for sale.
Yes.
Through your site. Okay, very good. So I do appreciate you being here, and we have had such a wonderful exchange and getting to know you and your work. I will just throw it back over and see if Dave or Jean or anyone has anything else to share before I.
Just again, a huge thank you to Tommy Mitchell for being with us tonight. Incredible artist. Reminder to everybody hanging out with us, the BMA is reopening with a lower capacity. Come visit us, come see some of the things that we have been doing, and please join us on, I wrote it down. I swear I wrote it down because this was going to happen. On November 12th for our next JJC Talks, that is going to be with Jarrell Gibbs, another incredible artist based in Baltimore, and not many know, but formerly the vice chair of JJC. So we're really excited to have him back as a presenting artist with us next time, and follow us online for more of that. And thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you all, and
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
Yes, it's the same.